Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsport sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Today we actually have a strategic partner for AMSOIL. You have probably noticed a few race vehicles with both AMSOIL and BFGoodrich on. And that's who we're talking to today. We have the Motorsport Marketing Manager for BFGoodrich Tires and Michelin, Peter Calhoun. Just last week, we had Kevin Castner of AMSOIL on. So it's a pretty cool thing to have these two lined up right next to each other and also seeing them on the same vehicles quite often. So a nice strategic partnership there. So I'm excited to have Peter come on. He was phenomenal. But before I get into that interview, there's a couple things I need to tell you. One is if you do have any questions about obtaining off-road racing tires, you have a few options to do that. One is go to bfgoodrichracing.com. The other is 1-800-RACE-BFG. You can call that, or you can check out Jackson Motorsports to get your connections there. AMSOIL and I have partnered up in the show. We want to make sure that you have the information you need to make the best decisions to grow and manage your sponsorship program. If you're getting value out of the show, please head over to iTunes and leave that rating and review. That is one of the best ways to make sure that this show continues to exist, continues to reach more people. And I definitely want you to subscribe. That way you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. Doesn't matter what platform you use, whether it's iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher or Spotify, whatever it is, go ahead and subscribe. Now this episode here is brought to you by several other awesome companies. SolderWeld, they produce game-changing metal bonding technology, and actually right now they're running the Rescue Your Race campaign on Insta, so go ahead and check them out. Pretty cool program. TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsports sponsorship. Bold Racing, they're a family race team and GSP XTV axle specialist. And then Crash Act Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, including MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and GSP XTV. Without further ado, let's hop in. Today, I'm really pumped. We've actually been working on this for quite some time now. Peter Calhoun is on the show. He's the Motorsport Marketing Manager for BFGoodrich and Michelin. So, Peter, why don't you fill in some of the gaps from that intro and tell us about yourself?
Well, thank you very much, Josh. As you said, it's sort of been a long time putting this together, fitting around both our schedules, but thanks for welcoming me to the show. As you said, I'm the Motorsport Marketing Manager with BFGoodrich Tires, which is a brand of the Michelin Group. We've been part of Michelin since 1990, actually, so it's been a long time. People sometimes forget that. But in my role, I'm responsible for all our motorsports partnerships and activations in North America. So I do have responsibility for not only the U.S., but also Canada and Mexico. And really what that entails is I work within our marketing community at our headquarters in Greenville, South Carolina, and I help, along with my team, develop our motorsport programs so they're in alignment with our brand strategies and how we want to amplify and showcase our brand through competition. A very important part of our role is that we're authentic and credible to our brand and to our products. And people say, what does that mean? It's like, well, tomorrow we're not going to go swamp buggy racing. Mm-hmm. We don't make a tire for swamp buggies. But if we go race in the desert, whether it be in the Southwest U.S. or the Baja Peninsula of Mexico or in South America with Dakar, that is authentic and credible to our brand because we're known, very well known as an off-road rock tire brand. And we do that through all different disciplines, whether it be on-road or off-road. And then obviously when we get into the Michelin brand, though most of this is done in Europe, obviously we have two-wheel competition also, whether it be motorcycle or bicycle. Mm-hmm. So, we're quite a diverse company, Michelin Group. We're the second largest tire company in the world by most measurements. We're quickly gaining on number one with a few acquisitions we've had in the last 12 months. But we race all over the world. And, in America, BFGoodrich, my responsibilities, as I said earlier, we're really known as an off-road rock tire brand. And that's where our real focus has been in competition for the last 45 plus years.
That's awesome. It's pretty interesting going back in time. My dad, now this would have been in the late 70s, so I wasn't actually around yet, but my dad had his old red F-250 He called it Big Red, and he had, like, I've seen pictures of it. It had the BFGoodrich KOs on it, like the iconic tire. And it's like, man, it's so cool. And he's run those his whole life. I've run those too. I actually just recently had, my last truck had the KO2s, which are, I don't know if there's any other tire in the world that has gained as much popularity in a short amount of time as that tire. Everybody has that tire, which is great. It's a good looking tire, but like everybody got it overnight. It's incredible.
Well, appreciate the compliments on the product. I have them on my truck also. But you're right. I mean, the KO2, when it was released in 2015, it was replacing what was already an icon within the industry. BFGoodrich really had created a category, the all-terrain category for tires back in the mid-1970s.
Yep.
And though at that time we were already racing, we'd been racing in the modern era since 1970, 1971 to showcase originally the radial TA as an ultra-high performance street car and the introduction of radials in the street cars at that time period. But come the mid-1970s, we were again recreating the light truck market, and that was with the introduction of radial again. We were innovators in that arena, but also with an all-terrain tire. It wasn't just a highway tire, but it had capabilities beyond that. And at the time, our engineering team down in Akron, Ohio, which is where we were headquartered for decades and decades, a small group of them went and visited Baja Peninsula, Mexico in 1975, and sort of took everything in. And in 1976, the fuse was lit, and we've been there ever since.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I want to dive in a little bit more into your background too. I love getting the stories of people figuring out how they got into industry. Like, how did you even choose this as a path? But so let's kind of start from the beginning. What got you into this industry?
Well, that's a common question people ask, because people from the outside look, "Oh, you have my dream job, And I said, "Oh, come to my desk tomorrow when you get 200 plus emails and a voicemail box that's overflowing with the red light glowing." But
exactly.
In all seriousness, my passion's always been automobiles and things with wheels. I'm into bicycles. I'm into cars. I'm into trucks. I enjoy motorcycles, though I'll never hop on one.
Yeah.
I know my limitations. But it's always been my passion. So from a little kid collecting, building model cars and having a Matchbox and Hot Wheel collection. So by the time I got into college, I majored in marketing and business administration, but my goal through having a marketing degree was to have the tools for me individually to chase my passion, to chase my dreams, and that was racing cars. Mm-hmm. So though I went down a professional path and my entire career has been in the automotive aftermarket in various marketing and sales types roles, it was all about my passion. That was automobile racing. So, sort of turned back the clock to when I got out of college. I was doing autocrossing with SCCA, and did my driver's schools, and was crewing for some club racing guys. And lo and behold, in the mid 1990s or so, I got a sponsorship from BFGoodrich tires.
Nice.
So I was achieving some success at the time on SCCA autocross and pro solo circuit, and I was a partner with BFGoodrich tires back when the internet wasn't around yet, and it was a means for them to showcase their product to enthusiasts through the old Team TA program. So as the years evolved and my career grew in the various marketing and management roles, about 9 years ago, right after the recession, ironically, I was sitting at my office one day. I was actually working at SCCA managing a program for Volkswagen, and I had a call from another OE, and they said, "Hey, we're down in Greenville at Michelin, and they're looking for somebody to manage their motorsports programs. All right, would you be interested?" I said, "Keep on talking." So took a while to put together, but eventually moved down to Greenville, and it's actually going to be 8 years ago, in a couple weeks here, early March. But it's a great example how my career has evolved of networking. Mm-hmm. Whether it be people you worked with or people you've met at different events, and how you behave, how you present yourselves, and what tools do you have that you can bring to a company? And I had a unique skill set in that I was a marketing professional in the automotive aftermarket, but I also had a competition background, both on the business side and on the driver's side. So it was really unique and something that was a good fit for them at the time. And I said, starting just here in a couple of weeks, I'll be starting my 9th race season, managing all the programs for BFGoodrich in North America.
Yeah, it's really cool. It actually reminded me of another story too. Joey DiGiovanni, better known as Joey D. He owned
Joey D.
Yeah, everybody knows Joey D, right? He actually was on the show a long time ago. When this one comes out, I think it's gonna be 142 when I release it. But Joey was last on 24. But either way, at the time, he was UTV Underground had a strong affiliation with Polaris Razor. Well, fast forward a year and a half, 2 years later, now Joey D is working, not for Polaris Razor directly, but for Craig Scanlon, who was, elevated in that company, president of TAP, and now Joey D is a director within that company, that organization. And then to make the whole connection thing crazier, Sarah Price, who's also been on the show twice now, she is now, I think that's their title sponsor now for Sarah Price's 4-Wheel Parts.
Yeah, so I just saw Joey a couple weeks ago out at King of the Hammers, actually, and he and I have been working on a few different things over the off season here. But you're correct, Sarah Price. Actually today, on her social channels, you can go into her Instagram page and have a look at it. She's got a little video on there. But yeah, she announced 4-Wheel Parts as her title sponsor today. And BFGoodrich is an associate sponsor on her program, which will actually kick off the Mint 400 next week, the BFGoodrich Tires Mint 400 in Las Vegas next week. And then she'll be running all season a Spec Trophy truck down in Score for all the Mexican races.
Oh, she is running
a trophy truck. And Joey's been doing a great job since he moved over to TAP. Spec Trophy truck. Yeah. 6100.
Oh, okay. That's
Trophy truck in Score.
She's been running that. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's the same class she ran last year, but it's her own program this year.
Very cool. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, but just kind of elaborating on your networking comment, it's a little crazy. It blows my mind from time to time. As many of these episodes I've done now, I've never ceased to be amazed by the crazy connections in the world. You say a name in motorsports, and somebody out there has met whoever that person is, whose name you just said. It's pretty wild.
It's a pretty small community.
Yeah.
Especially when you're on the professional side of it, that it's what you're doing Monday through Friday, or in the case of motorsport, Monday through Sunday.
Yep.
So there's people that have their specific niches, whether it be car, moto, UTV, like you mentioned, Joey. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty small community.
Right.
In America that are engaged on it, full time.
Definitely. Well, you've probably already hinted at a couple of things that you're excited about now, but I mean, what are you pumped about? What are you fired up about right now?
Well, right now it's all about the BFGoodrich Tires 50th Mint 400.
Yeah,
next
that's what
week.
I thought.
So I know you've had the Martellis on the show before, also.
Exactly.
And Josh and Matt and their cousin Killian, who are all from your hood in Southwest Michigan. There.
That's right.
They have just the whole Mad Media team has just done a terrific job in building that event up in the last few years. They took what was an iconic event back in the 70s, and it sort of it faded away for a while, and it was making a comeback as a strong best in desert race. But they've really taken it to the next level.
Definitely.
What the Martellis have done in activating and promoting the sport of desert off-road racing has been really remarkable. And I should really clarify this. It's just not desert off-road racing, because they're also beyond the UTV World Championships, which are going to be coming up in April in Laughlin. But they have set the bar about how to promote an event. Kevin from AMSOIL, I know his show went live today. He came out and visited the Mint last year at my urging, and AMSOIL's getting a lot more involved in the race this year. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be 2 days of racing this year instead of one. They've added motorcycles back into the show this year, which will race on Saturday morning. And they'll have the sportsman classes on Saturday afternoon. And then Sunday's going to be the big show. They'll have the slower classes on Sunday morning and the big boys racing on Sunday afternoon. So they've been able to increase the car count for the event, and then they'll do their typical great job of online presentation of the event, and then eventually I think it's going to be an NBC TV program later in the year.
Oh, wow.
And not to go on too much about the Mint 400, the other exciting thing about the Mint 400, other than being stacked in trophy truck and 6100 spec trophy truck out there, is we've got an F1 world champion that's going to be making his debut in an off-road desert race. Yeah. So 2009 Formula One world champion Jenson Button is going to be running a brand new Brenthel 6100 truck with Chris Buncombe and then a gentleman from Singer Automotive Design. So it's pretty cool. It's been getting a lot of press, not just domestically, but around the world because of Jenson's participation.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that'll, if that picks up, there's going to be a little bit more competition, and then there's going to have more races, and it's only going to go up from there.
Yeah, I mean, the sport of desert racing is pretty healthy right now. Both Best in the Desert in the Southwest and Score in Mexico, they've both had a resurgence in recent years. We've gotten past the economic doldrums of 2008 through 2010. People have some disposable income to spend. So trophy truck field, it is unbelievable when you see how stacked those fields are right now. The number of trucks that are out there, the quality of the trucks that is out there, and then you sit back and go, that truck's $750,000.
Oh,
that truck's XYZ, and so it's really strong right now.
Yeah, and I mean, just figuring every race, whether it's, probably more the basic prep is at least $50K. So you have these trucks, even if they survive, even if you don't need to do that much work to them, you still have to go back through and do a full race prep and check every single weld, and that could easily be $50K. That's why
it's a pretty conservative number on a trophy truck.
That's probably probably more like $100K baseline. But yeah, it's when we talk about these shows and the importance of sponsorship programs, when you start looking at trophy trucks, or we've had a couple NHRA racers on here, like NHRA. Every year they're going through $15,000, $20,000 in spark plugs, just in spark plugs. That's just
consumables.
Right.
Consumables. People, take an easy one. Fuel.
Yeah.
How many gallons of 114 to 116 octane race fuel are you going through with a trophy truck? I can tell you when guys are calculating their mileage on a trophy truck, it's under 2 miles per gallon on one of those trucks.
Holy cow. I'm going to have to run some numbers on that someday because that is just incredible. Yeah, they're going 130 mile an hour in the desert, full bore. I guess 2 miles per gallon is probably doing okay. Okay.
Yeah, you're talking 800 to 900 horsepower, V8, going through all sorts of terrain. And when they're doing their fuel calculations based on the size of their cell and when they got to pit, most guys are having to pit somewhere around 175 miles. So they can stretch it a little bit more. Sometimes some trucks, but dollar signs add up quick to the VP salesman at that point.
Oh yeah. Wow. Well, that's good stuff. I'm excited. I won't be at Mint 400. I'll be at Vegas to Reno this year again, but I need to get out to Mint, I think, next year in 2020. I need to get that in the books.
Well, it's perfect timing, too, because by that time you are tired of a Michigan winter.
Yeah, that's about it. Honestly, I've had a snowmobiling trip planned pretty much every year around the Mint. And this year I don't actually have one planned. I was supposed to be doing something else. That trip got canceled, so I don't know. I probably could have made it work, but hey, next year though, I think I'm gonna have to give up on some snowmobiling and make the Mint happen. Well, hey, what I want to do next is take a minute to thank the sponsors for this podcast, and then we'll hop into Heat 2.
Excellent.
2 questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with TopThePodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you got to check out topthepodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistall of topthepodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to topthepodium.com. And then the resume, again, is massive. And if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible.
What's up, everyone? This is Mike Pasquarella, founder of Desert Vets Racing. When the team goes racing, we always have our SolderWeld products with us. Keeping the cars in the fight is our number one concern. With SolderWeld, we can do that. SolderWeld is a leading company in the U.S. for aluminum repair. They specialize in radiator repair on the fly. If you're stuck in the middle of the trail or a race with a hole in your radiator, oil pan, or canister, or even an aluminum line, you can fix it right then and there in a matter of minutes with their AMSOIL aluminum repair rods and flux. It's the only complete and lasting fix in the off-road community. SolderWeld's new UTV off-road kits fit in every ride and are easy to access on the fly.
SolderWeld continues to make a huge positive impact on this industry. So I really encourage you, get in there now. Go to solderweld.us, check out their products, because this stuff is changing the game. Family race team. Those are the first words that come to mind when I think of Bold Racing. And the next one is actually axles. Bold Racing is a premier distributor of GSP XTV axles. And if that wasn't cool enough, they just came out with an entirely new axle called the Revolution axle. It is a hollow tube axle. It's really cool. If you head over to their website, gspxtv.com, or you can find out more at boldracingltd.com, you can find out how this new axle technology works. So they are saying to view this as a fuse for your drivetrain. So the hollow tube CV axle twist technology actually increases the strength and reliability of the axle, and it also reduces stress on the drivetrain. Plus, honestly, it's super cool looking, and if people know me, they know that I really like cool looking stuff. So they come in this really cool gold color. Check it out. It's absolutely revolutionary. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out CrashAddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now in Heat 2. That's where we talk about sponsorship tactics and strategies. So Heat 1 is where we dive into the background. We understand a little bit more of the context about the guests, And in this case, Peter, we got to know how you got into this sport, what is exciting about, I guess, even the Mid 400 coming up right now, but just other things within the BFGoodrich world that's exciting. But now we got to get into some of the nitty-gritty details, some of the stuff that people need to know. I want to start by talking about athletes and content creators in general. So when I say athletes, I mean racers, I mean different riders, things like that. How is this sponsorship world in motorsports changing?
It is a very timely and legitimate question, Josh, because the sponsorship landscape is changing. And it's just not in motorsports, but it's in sports marketing in general. The landscape is very crowded right now. How and where companies can spend their money to reach consumers, it's more vast than it's ever been. And one of the first things I will tell people when they're going out to seek out companies or individuals to help with their race programs, and I'm saying race programs because that's what we're talking about on your podcast, but it's no different if you're going out seeking somebody to help support your kid's little league team, soccer team. The first thing I will tell everybody is remove the word sponsorship from your vocabulary. Mm-hmm. Remove the word sponsor. It's antiquated and it's not relevant in 21st century. Replace that word with partner. Mm-hmm. The word sponsor, and I really learned this from an OE partner, original equipment automobile manufacturer that I worked very closely with for years. Mm-hmm. It's antiquated in the sense that the old sponsorship model was very one-directional. It was athlete reaches out to company, asks for this amount of dollars, this amount, a product calls back in a year and says, hey, I won this many races, let's do it again. That was before the internet was around, all these social channels that are easily accessible. People don't read the newspaper anymore. People don't read the yellow pages anymore. So it's really changing. And why partner is so important in these discussions and how you present yourself and the business opportunity is it needs to be mutually beneficial nowadays. It needs to be a win-win for both parties. It can't just be one-sided. So I give you product, I need something in return. You give me something in return, I'll give you product. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's about brand recognition, brand awareness. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's about proving and showcasing your product to build advocacy, to build loyalty. Other times it's an R&D exercise. Mm-hmm. What can we learn from competition that we can take back and eventually translate into our consumer products that we wouldn't learn in a laboratory or wouldn't learn as quickly in a laboratory? I can tell you from the Michelin Motorsport world, and I say that under the entire umbrella for both our brands and all our programs, we categorize our competition pieces into basically three buckets, three pillars. And one is about showcasing our brand, building brand awareness. That is not a big challenge for either of our brands because we're both so well recognized. I mean, Michelin and the Michelin Man is consistently one of the most recognized corporate mascots in the world. It's like Coca-Cola and Kleenex. Everybody knows, the Michelin Man. Mm-hmm. And BFGoodrich has been around since the late 1800s too. So brand recognition isn't our problem. But we do need to showcase our product and differentiate our product so people know that they're getting something that's tough, that's durable, that performs. And it's just not a marketing exercise, that we're authentic and credible to our brand attributes. The other reason that we go racing is the R&D component that I was just mentioning. There are just things we can learn in competition that we're not going to learn elsewhere or learn as quickly. It could be things like compounding. It can be construction. It can be sizing. There's literally hundreds of different things that our engineers can learn from competition. And one thing that you can guarantee is that if a Michelin or BFGoodrich is racing and it has some level of corporate support, we will have engineers on site because we're such a technically driven company. Mm-hmm. At the Mint, I'll have engineers on site. Every Score race, every Dustin Desert race, every Lucas race, every MX5 Cup race on pavement, every IMSA race for Michelin, just in North America, we'll have multiple engineers on site collecting data, talking to teams, talking to drivers, talking to engineers, so we can take that back to our technical center either in Greenville, South Carolina, or in Clermont-Ferrand, France, and consistently design and develop the best products in the world. That is, just, primordial to our brands. Mm-hmm. That we have product that we design, engineer, and race on. It's not somebody else doing it. It's Michelin engineers. And the third reason we race is commercial. We want to sell race tires. Right. We want to sell tires that the hobbyist and the semi-professional and even the professional racer can go out and chase their dreams, chase race wins, and use our products. There's obviously, many tire companies out there, but there are certain disciplines where historically we have been near the forefront. Obviously for BFGoodrich, desert racing in North America, we are the preeminent brand within that discipline and have been since, the late 1970s after arriving there in 1976, as we spoke about earlier. Mm-hmm. You look at sports car racing, and Michelin has become the exclusive supplier of tires to the AMSOIL WeatherTech Sports Car Championship this year. And within sports car racing globally, Michelin is recognized as the leader in that type format of racing. And we can put a lot of different other examples on it. Dakar. Mm-hmm. Dakar just ended up in mid-January down in Peru. Mm-hmm. That was BFGoodrich's 14th overall win at Dakar. But that doesn't include a few years where we were racing on Michelin down there. We're racing on motorcycles on Michelin down there. Toby Price, who'll be out at the Mint 400. He won the motorcycle class down at Dakar in a KTM equipped with Michelin tires. So we have a very diverse product portfolio, and we race in a lot of different disciplines, but it's all on product designed, engineered, and built by Michelin employees. And that's why we take those learnings back and design the best street tires possible.
Oh, that's good. And I have a couple of quick comments to add to that. So the first part you were talking about, just the changes in the industry, and I just read this book. It's called Agile Marketing, which you've probably heard of that term plenty of times, but essentially for people listening, I think of it as a way as like, intervals of marketing. How can you make smaller changes and smaller incremental improvements that you're always releasing something new, and always, I guess it allows you to be more nimble, more agile. And
right.
It's so interesting now looking at the way companies are utilizing social media, or the way they're using racing programs, and it's almost like thousands of little pieces are building to make the full brand. It's really cool, especially with influencer marketing out there, which is what I kind of call what motorsport sponsorship is influencer marketing. But it's really cool just to kind of think about that. A lot of industries are doing that, even from a standpoint of like new startup companies, right? Or even I guess I'll talk about Tesla for a minute, right? Tesla, now they'll take their cars, right? They release them, they get them to you, and then they update them. Then they update them, and then they update them. Like you could go to sleep one night with your Tesla plugged in. The next morning, it's got a new software update with maybe a new performance profile option. Like it's just a whole nother way of looking at things. So the same thing is happening with marketing. And it's really fun to see. It allows me to continue to make these shows. That's why I've done 140 episodes, and I can still keep going. But because there's something new every week, it seems like to talk about.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Josh. I mean, it continually is changing, and that's the challenge for companies, small and large, is how do you keep up with it and see those trends, and which of them are going to stick around and which of them are just going to be a flash in the pan. Sort of the second part of your earlier question was content creation. Mm-hmm. And that is becoming more and more important for partners to provide to the company that's supporting them, because we are a platform upon which that content can be delivered. I often have this discussion with younger athletes involved in motorsport, and they'll just like, well, why should I tag you? Because you're not supporting me directly, but we may support the property they're in or offer contingency programs in the series they're running in. Mm-hmm. Well, and the explanation is pretty simple, really. And then the light bulb will sort of go on. It's like, well, like many people, when you start out racing as a kid, a teenager, it doesn't matter the age or the discipline. Often it's a family sport. You're being supported by your dad, and you go to the track on the weekend. But a lot of that's coming out of dad's wallet until you establish yourself, get some results, and obviously, hopefully, get some companies to come on board. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, simple things like tagging are going to bring attention to you as an athlete to those potential partners. If you're talking about us, we're going to take notice. We have the tools to know who's talking about us. If you're not talking about us, if you're silent, we're not going to find you. The second part of it is our audience is organically, without getting into all the algorithms and how the different social platforms work nowadays, our organic audience, though, is going to be much larger than you as an individual. Mm-hmm. We can amplify your voice and your reach further than you ever could on your own within your means. Mm-hmm. So top of head, BFGoodrich on Facebook right now is somewhere around 1 million plus followers. Instagram, I don't know where we are right now, but as an athlete to have that many followers, it's few and far between. Mm-hmm. There aren't many NASCAR drivers that have followings over 1 million nowadays.
That's very true, yeah.
Dale Jr. retired 2 years ago, even though he's coming back for a few races. He was up there. If you look at action sports stars, you look at like Tanner Faust or Travis Pastrana, who are both great guys. They both have followers measured in the millions.
Yes.
But they're sort of the exception to the rule because they've built up a following based on their content and what they've done as athletes, because neither one of them is really a full-time racer anymore.
Right.
The example I gave earlier, Jenson Button, coming to the Mint next week. If people have noticed, first it got pushed out by Mad Media as promoter of the event, and then by ourselves as a partner with the program. But then all of a sudden it was picked up by Auto Week, it was picked up by Road and Track, it was picked up by these other mainstream endemic publications that normally would not cover off-road racing.
Right.
But when you have an F1 world champion coming to race a truck in the desert, all of a sudden it's news.
Oh yeah.
And then you find out that Jensen himself, he has followers in the millions too through his different social platforms. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden it's amplifying the sport and the reach of that. And that's where it's a partnership. It's not a sponsorship, mm-hmm. because it's mutually beneficial to others. You talk about us, we can talk about you. We can amplify your voice. You can amplify ours. And it's important. I think another person you've had on the show at some point was RJ Anderson.
Yes.
And you mentioned Polaris and Joey D earlier, and those guys are sort of like the three amigos out that they work together. Yeah, and
Evan Schendel of Polaris has been on twice now too.
Yeah, so there's a great article in Racer Magazine this month on RJ, and it's really a season summary of his pro championship in the Lucas Oil Series last year. But Racer's sort of mainstream magazine. They really talk about RJ, the athlete, and how most people think that he just does crazy stuff in a UTV, in a Razor. But it's the means to the end. He does the videos so he can go racing.
Right.
It's no different than why did Enzo Ferrari build cars? So he could go racing.
Right.
It's the means to the end.
Mm-hmm. One other thing that I wanted to expand on a little bit is your comment too around the R&D piece. So for me, I don't know if everybody knows my background, but right now I'm operations manager at a proving grounds. So I work with engineers all the time. I've got engineers within my team, and until you get to spend time with an engineer like who's trying to understand whether it's vehicle dynamics or some specific automotive performance element, you don't really know what that machine is like until you get to spend time with an engineer talking about it. Like I think it probably makes people better racers too. So look at it as that from the partnership standpoint. You can give feedback to, let's say if it's BFGoodrich and you're at a race, you can give feedback to the engineers about how the tire's performing. They're going to be able to ask questions to you that are going to make you think more about, well, how am I actually handling this right now, or how,
Right.
How did it hit that rock, or it goes both ways. I think about there's this old show. It was a movie. Gosh, I'm blanking on it. It's with Cole Trickle and it's played by
Days
Tom
of
Cruise.
Thunder?
Days of Thunder. Why can't I think of the name? Days of Thunder, and he goes out there and he's like just blowing up engines and being crazy, but he starts learning more about how the car works, and then now he's a better driver.
Well, I learned it on ESPN. They told you that in the movie.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. But to take the Cole Trickle example here, like there's a true partnership there, and the engineers love it too, and that's the only way they can get that data sometimes.
Yeah, it's interesting in motorsport, and it doesn't matter if it's four-wheel or two-wheel. I mean, I think there's the two best examples I can ever think of. There's a lot of misunderstanding on tires,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one current day is probably dampers, shock absorbers.
Oh, yeah.
There is the internet can be your best friend or your worst enemy when you start researching those two topics, because there is probably more bad information out there than there is good.
Mm-hmm.
A good tire engineer and a good damper engineer are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
To develop your race vehicle and maximize its performance.
Yeah, I've heard stories about like Robbie Gordon, how he can walk up to a vehicle and look at it and say like, "Whoa, are you having trouble like doing left-hand turns at 40 mile an hour?" They're like, "Yeah, I am. How'd you know that?" "Oh, I mean, I can tell from looking at the vehicle, just sitting here, what your problem is."
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah, Robbie is interesting because Robbie is, first off, he is probably one of the most naturally talented drivers in off-road racing currently, but he has such a vast array of experience in everything from off-road racing to Indy cars to stock cars to Dakar and Rally Raid, and most recently UTV side by side. God, Robbie's been around forever, and I think he's only just turned 50 maybe.
Yeah.
But Robbie's one of those guys. He's a pro in a domain of desert off-road racing where a lot of them are gentleman drivers. Mm-hmm. They're entrepreneurs and businessmen that have been very successful and are chasing their dreams and their hobby. But Robbie's a pro, and he's been a pro since he was 16. So. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's one of those guys that could do that just as Rob Mack could do it also.
Right. Oh, it's very cool just hearing about those things too. And that's just going back to my like engineer comment. If you think you know anything about, let's say, I mean, we talk about tires, but where I'm at, we spend a lot of time with differentials. Like if you think you know about a differential, you need to go talk to a differential engineer, and they will tell you about like the exact angle of this one gear that's like hidden inside there and how important that surface finish is on that angle. Like it is ridiculous, but that's what you got. You have to be that way if you're going to make the product perform the way it needs to perform. And in order to get there, you got to have the data too.
Exactly. And though my personal background is more in road racing domains, I would tell people, find the best experts you can on that given piece of your car. You have your engine guy, you have your driveline guy, you have your damper guy. And use them as a sponge and soak up the knowledge from them, because what you can learn will last you a lifetime. It's the proverbial, they can teach you all you know, but not all they know, and you'll still be out ahead.
Definitely. Well, I want to ask another question here about brands. What do you think are the best ways that the influencers, in this case the riders, the racers, how can they help brands be more effective with their sponsorship dollars?
Well, you hit on a very hot topic right now. Influencer-based marketing has really been gaining momentum, and it's been growing out of the social platforms that we were talking about earlier. And I think one important thing to recognize in the case of a mainstream tire company like Michelin and BFGoodrich as a sub-brand of it, but also other brands within your, most brands, motorsport is going to be one small component of their marketing and R&D.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what they do exclusively. There's exceptions out there, absolutely. But when you look at it, motorsports is a piece of the pie. So when we talk about influencer marketing, and you mentioned it earlier, yes, motorsports athletes, motorsports partners are a part of an influencer-based marketing strategy. But often in today's environment, today's culture, brands are looking for people that have influence in communities away from that endemic enthusiast.
Mm-hmm.
How do we talk to the soccer mom? How do we
Mm-hmm.
talk about the guy that's in construction and he follows stick and ball sports? How do we, talk to the landscaper? Because all these people are buying tires for their vehicles, and they're not all race fans.
Mm-hmm.
Can you use motorsport to validate and authenticate your product to that audience? Yeah, but it's only one piece of it. So that's why you need to find these influencers within their various subcultures that will speak to those people and talk about your brand, talk about your product, become your advocates. Perfect example. For 2019, actually, BFGoodrich is launching a tradesman program, and it is to talk to those people I just mentioned. It's your construction workers, it's your roofers, it's your landscapers, it's your farmers. What's the best-selling truck in America? F-150s get used everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They all need tires.
Mm-hmm.
Are they all being used for the same purpose? No. Some are on highway, some are off highway, some need to go, combination of both with like our all-terrain KO2 we started the show with. But they all need tires. So we need to speak to those people somehow. So last week, we had a team that was out at the American Home Builders Show in Las Vegas to talk to those people that are in the construction trade. We were at a show in New Orleans about 3 weeks ago for the American Cattlemen's Association. The American Cattlemen's Association of cattle farmers all around the country. There's a lot of F-150s and 1,500 Silverados driving around farms.
Mm-hmm.
How does it all come full circle, though? For me and my role, well, when our marketing team, our communications team goes, we're going to go here, goes, well, we have somebody that races with us in the desert that's a cattle farmer.
Yeah.
And their ears perk up, and they're like, what? Yeah. Let me get a hold of Justin Lofton. And
right.
His family has cattle farms in California and Texas.
Right. Beef.
Hashtag beef.
Hashtag beef.
Sure enough, I reach out to Justin, and 15 minutes later, I have a text. He goes, oh, he's not going to the show because him and his dad are going to the Parker 425, but his mom and his sister are going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, our communications team has a meeting with the Lofton family down there. And obviously construction, the off-road arena, whether it be short course or desert, is loaded with people in construction and real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
So when we can have partner athletes, partner race teams that are in those businesses, and then use them to talk to these audiences further, it becomes a win-win for our motorsport programs. But influencer-based marketing, I say, it is, it's a hot one right now and constantly changing. Instagram is sort of the platform that's been hot for the last couple of years. Facebook's been steady, but declining as they're in the news occasionally for some security and virus issues. But and Twitter's losing a little bit of its luster. Instagram is really strong right now.
Yeah, definitely.
For influencer-based marketing, though.
Definitely. Well, and so you mentioned Justin Lofton as well, and that truck is, even when he changes the looks of it, it's my favorite truck ever. Like, I remember the first time I saw it in person, and I got to interview Justin. This was a while ago. It was in 2017, I think, at the Vegas Reno. But man, that's such a cool truck. I need to shake the hand of the person who puts this vehicle together. I mean, it's just beautiful. The scheme, the tires match the rest of the scheme. It looks great.
Yeah, he's always got that orange and black going.
Yeah, and he's got his own RC car. Traxxas has got the duplicate body.
Yep.
And they got one for Keegan Kincaid too. Like, it's so cool. That's so cool. I pulled up pictures of it. I literally was like, I need to look at this truck right now. So I actually pulled up a picture on my phone to look at it. But
yeah, Justin's been doing some really good videos. Also, talking about influencer-based marketing, going to his Instagram platform and the hashtag #Abif. And after every race, he's been doing a little video review, and he's been doing just a great job on those. And that's again a good tie back when we're talking about content creation and influencer-based marketing. They all tie together. Video is a very powerful platform right now that can be pushed out through the social channels. I just saw something today that YouTube. Every day on YouTube, there's enough content uploaded to watch for like 65 years or something crazy.
Holy cow.
Like that. But I would tell people video is important with a couple caveats. A, it needs to be good quality. Luckily, small cameras, pick the brand of your choice. They're getting very affordable and having good HD quality. With good quality editing. And this is one not everybody has grasped. Be very cautious of the length of your video if you're pushing them out through your social channels. There is a time that gets to be too long, and long format stuff, put it up on YouTube. But if you're pushing out through Instagram, Facebook, people will only watch so much unless it's really riveting before it's too long, and they'll hit pause and I'll go back, move on. Or hit pause and never go back.
Yep.
When we do videos at BFGoodrich, 30 seconds would be a teaser.
Yeah.
Minute is not uncommon, but it will be very rare. There's exceptions, but very rare will go over the 3 or 4 minute mark.
Yep.
If you get over 5 minutes, you got to better have some really captivating content to keep the audience. Exceptions, some of the stuff that RJ Anderson and Polaris have done the last few years. Obviously, Ken Block has proven it over and over with the Gymkhana series, which ironically started with Mad Media back in the day.
Right. That's exactly right.
But even as much as I enjoy myself as a car person watching some of the Gymkhana videos, the last couple have gotten too long for me. And I'm like, 10 minutes? Right. I've got 5. So just be cautious. I would tell the audience when you're doing video, if you have captivating video that's 1 minute to 2 minutes long, you're guaranteed you're going to keep your audience.
Right. I think it's a very good point. And that's Instagram helps with that, right? They'll lock you in for a minute on your posts. You could do more with Instagram TV. But but it is different style content if you're doing Instagram TV versus a standard post.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's a platform that's evolving too. With Instagram TV,
definitely,
and everything, and it's not going to stop either. So.
Right. Well, we'll go on to the next piece here. I want to hit the main event, which is what I call the lightning round now. So this is where I usually stump people with the first question, but I try to go quickly through a couple of these questions here and just hit on them. So if you could sponsor anyone in the world, doesn't even have to be an athlete, anyone in the world, who would you choose and why?
Oh, that's a tough one, and I don't like to play favorites. Anyone in the world. If you look at Hook It reports, it's going to be some soccer player.
Right. Right.
I'm going to go with Patrick Dempsey.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah. I said, because I told you I have a sports car background, but I've met Patrick a few times, and he really is a nice guy and authentic and credible. He's not a stereotypical Hollywood star, but he's a car guy. I mean, he's passionate about the sport, the business, and he's sort of the modern day interpretation of a Steve McQueen or a Paul Newman. That he's out there doing it because he enjoys it. But he does have an audience. He has a following. Yep. And you have seen that with some of the brands he's associated himself with, even after he's not in television every week when he's how Porsche uses and some other companies. But That's a shoot from the hip response, though.
I like it. And the reason why I asked that, well, there's a couple of reasons, but the main reason why I asked that is I love to see how the guest thinks about the question. Like, the answer is great, but I love to hear how you got there. So you're like, Hook It, right? That's a database platform. You can tell right off the bat, like, how somebody is performing in the social world, what their reach is. So you were immediately like, it's probably some sort of athlete, likely a soccer player based off of a world aspect. So that was pretty cool. And then, you called out a couple things about Patrick Dempsey, like authentic, and his values align with your values essentially.
Exactly. And then the other thing that a person like that does for a brand, he has cross-pollination. And when I say cross-pollination is that he'll talk to the person that's involved in motorsport. Some people might not take him as authentic and credible because they think he's just a Hollywood star if they haven't met him and interacted with him. But then you get the cross-pollination comes, well, the guy's wife or girlfriend likes him too.
Yep.
So all of a sudden you're hitting on the male and the female side of the audience, and they like him for different reasons.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, so that for anybody listening right now, take note of that. Anytime I ask that question in the show, think about, why are they asking that, which means that's what people are looking for. Now, everybody's different, right? So if I ask somebody else that question, they're going to look at somebody else because they're trying to find who aligns with, their values or whatever their goal is. If your goal was to gain access to the United Kingdom, general population market, you might pick a soccer player. That exactly. Might be where you go.
You need to define well what your goals are and your strategy to achieve those goals. What's the mean to the end? To just toss things at a dartboard and say, we're going to do this is not going to work well for success or for your budget. So you need to have a strategy behind your actions. The other thing that I mentioned at the beginning of that question, and you may have talked about this on one of your earlier shows, if the audience isn't familiar with it, go into Hook It, hookit.com. And they are a social media measuring agency, for lack of a better term. They're in Southern California. Think of them as a modern day Joyce Julius. Joyce Julius is still around, and they measure the value of your brand's impression on TV and through advertising for sporting events and mainstream television programs. But Hook It is doing that on the social media platforms for brands and for athletes to show who is returning on their investment for the brands. And they have some excellent dashboards on their website that you can even filter down into different sports, different disciplines, and see who the top athletes are in the world. I can tell you that he's either number 2 or 3 right now is a race car driver.
Oh, yeah.
The first 2 are soccer players, football players for the rest of the world. It's Ronaldo and Niemeyer. But number 2 or 3 is Lewis Hamilton.
Okay.
And Lewis Hamilton can be alienating to some people, but he is alienating because he pushes the boundaries. Yeah. He's a 21st century athlete that is generally using his social platforms to promote his partners and him as an athlete. He's had a few times in recent history where he's turned them off and gone dark for a while because he gets a lot of negative press in his home country of Britain. But he is one of the most recognized athletes in the world, and his paycheck says that also.
Right. No, that's very good. Yeah, I definitely encourage people, especially if you're just, if you're not sure where to start. I mean, start there. Go on to Hook It.
Yeah, there's good information on there.
Definitely, and you can see what other people are doing. It's a good platform. It's one of the first things when I started doing the show that people brought up. They're like, oh yeah, you definitely need to make sure that your audience is aware of Hook It, and that they're paying attention to that.
Yeah, it would be a great guest on the show.
Yeah, actually, I do a lot with LinkedIn, keeping track of people and making connections, and I have some connection there with Scott of what is it, Tilson or Tilton? the founder? I can't remember. Something like that.
I'm not sure. I have another contact there who the Martelli brothers and I work with.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, I was trying to get somebody on the show from Hook It because I think that would be phenomenal.
I can help you with that.
Okay. See, this is networking. People take note. This is
exactly.
Networking. And that's how you ended up on the show, too, is through a lot of different networking. But let's see. So I was at Vegas Reno. Nate Hunt, this would have been 2017. Nate Hunt was on the show, and he works with you. And we made some connections somehow there. Kevin Kastner and I were talking about you. We made some more connections there. Scott Robbins and I were talking about you.
Yeah, so Scott was our digital manager until recently.
Yeah, a couple months ago.
Then, so Nate's actually my off-road program manager. Nate works for me, and hopefully he's left the office by now. It's 9:30.
Right.
Hopefully he has left because he may be the hardest working man in off-road racing that's not turning a wrench or a steering wheel.
Yeah.
So Nate helps me manage all our off-road partnerships and programs in America. And in Mexico for the score races, and he's been a great asset to our brand and our company. And he's my eyes, ears, and feet on the ground because I can't be everywhere. And we talk every day, and people just say, got to call Nate.
Yeah,
it's like that's what he's there for. But
perfect.
Yeah, couldn't do it without him.
Perfect. I might know the answer to this one already, but if you could use only one social media platform, which one would you choose and why?
Today, Instagram.
Yeah. Everybody says that.
It just has the most momentum right now, and you can see it by the way the numbers are growing. It doesn't matter if you're a brand, an athlete, or an individual. You can just see it. I know from personal experience, I can only spend so much time on social platforms, and like everybody, I was an early adapter of Facebook 10 plus years ago, which was great to keep up with family and friends from high school and college, and old neighbors you used to have. But I know one thing that soured some people was getting into debates with people. Those three sins. Don't talk about religion and politics and somebody else's sports team. But what I've always enjoyed about Instagram is you can choose who you want to follow or unfollow, and there's not a lot of two-way dialogue.
Yeah.
You'll have some people commenting, but it's the proverbial picture says 1,000 words. And since you are choosing the audience you want to follow, you can go through. And in my case, I can tell you, I go through and I look at race cars, race trucks, bicycles, motorcycles, and I could just scroll through my phone or my iPad for 10 minutes in the middle of the day, and it's like, sort of your coffee break to clear your mind. There's nothing you need to reply to like an email. It's like, oh, my email box has exploded. So it's a more relaxing experience. And and when the elections come around, there's not political banter on there. So I think people have just found it, it's less stressful for them. And now companies and athletes are seeing that as a marketing program, because obviously just a television show, you could have some product placement in there. You can include hyperlinks in there to drive them to your website. So Instagram, bar none, would be the platform today.
Yeah,
it might be different in 12 months, but today is Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, it's very popular in the motorsports industry, and I think for obvious reasons. The industry is very visual. There's a lot of cool stuff to see, and from my standpoint, I'll give one example. I just picked up a Jeep Wrangler late in 2018, and you can do every upgrade under the sun for these vehicles, right? And I started an Instagram profile just for my Jeep. Like I named it. I had my audience help me name it. And it picks up 1,000 followers like pretty much overnight with very little effort. But I can go on there and see anything that I might want. If I'm looking at, I am. I'd love to get a rooftop tent. So like rooftop tents, I could see 1,000 people using rooftop tents like instantly. instantly. It's amazing. I can see every different color variation that I want, every different winch thing. I mean, it's just everything is there, and it's all visual. You can see it very quickly, and it's fun. I don't know. They've done a good job.
Yeah, it's a less stressful experience and can be fun. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Good. All right, last one here. Who would you say has been your biggest supporter?
I think a lot of people would, pick out a family member or a friend. But earlier in the show, we were talking about how did I get my start in the industry?
Mm-hmm.
How did I end up where I am? And I gave you a little story about I know we being down in Greenville at the Michelin offices and calling me up. And I have no problem telling him this to his face. So my biggest supporter has been a gentleman named John Doonan.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that don't follow road racing, John Doonan's the director of motorsport for Mazda North America, and he has been for the last 10 plus years or so. And John and I have been friends for 15 years or so. We both grew up in suburban Chicago at competing high schools, and we got introduced by a mutual friend at a race years ago, and we were both in the industry, and we just sort of hit it off as friends. And he's just been a great advocate and supporter of me, and he was opening the door at Michelin for me. And I say I'll tell people that every time I introduce them, every time I see him. But when we were coming out of the recession in 2009, 2010, he was the one that opened the door for me. So John Doonan at Mazda has been not only a great friend, but a great supporter.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, it's time to wrap things up. You stuck in there with me for a little bit longer tonight, and I appreciate that. The audience appreciates that. But we're going to wrap up now. What would you say is one thing that our listeners need to take away from this show? If they forgot everything else, what's the one thing that they need to remember?
That is an easy one for me, Josh, and we've touched on it a couple different times in brief. Remove the word sponsor from your vocabulary.
Yeah.
Remove it from your decks, your presentations. Remove the word sponsor. It's antiquated.
Mm-hmm.
Replace it with partner. Companies want partnerships that are mutually beneficial and show mutual return on investment. That is the key in today's business and sports sponsorship world, partnerships.
Perfect. I like to guess, at least in my head, what the guest is going to say to that one, and I rarely get it right, but this time I knew you were going to say that because you hit it so concisely and so clearly earlier. I was like, that's got to be the one thing. It's got to be it.
Yeah, it is lesson number one, and I have been preaching that for years, and this is how things go full circle. John Doonan's one of the people that taught me that.
Oh, perfect. That's awesome. Well, what's the best way for people listening to connect with you?
The best way for people to connect with me is to call Nate Hunt.
Perfect.
No,
you said that too earlier.
Yeah, in all seriousness, Nate and I collaboratively, though he works for me, manage all our off-road partnerships, our pavement stuff. I primarily do myself for on the BFGoodrich side for people racing in SCCA and NASA and other grassroots road racing autocross environments. Best way is via email. I would say reach out to Josh first to get it. I really don't want to put it out publicly.
No, that's fine. Yeah,
but,
that's good.
We're in Greenville, South Carolina, is our American headquarters, North American headquarters for everything. But yeah, I am happy, and I will tell people flat out. I or Nate as my delegate, we will reply to any inquiry we get that's personally addressed to us. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people get frustrated. It doesn't matter if you're applying for a job and send out your resume or sending out a deck for partnership review. We will reply in kind to everything we receive.
Oh, that's perfect.
Out of courtesy, because I know how it feels to be on the other end of the phone or on the other side of the keyboard.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat tonight. I think this has been phenomenal. I feel like the audience learned a little bit more about, BFGoodrich as a brand, and they learned about some of the ways that you approach partnerships. And I got to leave you with this, so it's time to end things. Have fun and ride safe.
Thanks a lot, Josh. Have a great night.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Make sure you follow us on social media. Pay specific attention to our Facebook page. That's where we do our live shows. To get some insider access to upcoming guests, go ahead and check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. A special thanks goes out to the sponsors of this show, AMSOIL, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. And I also want to shout out some of our other partners, GSP XTV, MBRP, HMK USA, and Stud Boy Traction. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.